6 ugly habits you develop in old age that push people away without realizing it. As we age, there are certain habits or behaviors we might adopt without even realizing it that can unintentionally push people away. These changes often stem from physical, mental, and emotional shifts that happen naturally over time. However, it's important to recognize these behaviors so we can make conscious efforts to maintain strong, healthy relationships. The reality is, while some of these habits may seem harmless to us, they can make others feel uncomfortable, isolated, or even neglected. This is why it's crucial to understand which behaviors might be damaging to our relationships, especially as we get older. One common behavior that can distance us from others is constant complaining. It's completely natural to express frustration or discomfort, especially as we deal with the aches and pains of aging. But when complaining becomes a habit, it can start to drain the energy of those around us. People often don't know how to respond to someone who is always focusing on what's wrong. Research shows that negativity, especially in a social context, can be contagious. A study conducted by the University of California found that people who are exposed to persistent negativity, even from close family members, are more likely to feel stressed, anxious, and even depressed themselves. In a worst-case scenario, this consistent negative energy can drive people away. Friends and family may feel like they're walking on eggshells, unsure of what will set off another round of complaints. This isn't to say that we shouldn't vent or share our feelings. It's simply about finding a balance between expressing discomfort and appreciating the positives that still exist in our lives. Another behavior that can develop as we age is a tendency to become overly dependent on others. As we grow older, it's natural to need help more frequently. However, there's a fine line between asking for support and relying too heavily on others for every little thing. When we lean too much on our loved ones, whether it's for physical assistance, emotional support, or even making decisions for us, it can create a sense of burden in those around us. Family members or friends might feel like they're carrying a heavy load, especially if they have their own lives and responsibilities. Dependency can lead to feelings of frustration and resentment over time, which ultimately drives people away. This dependency can also impact the way we view our own self-worth. It's important to remain as independent as possible, seeking help when necessary but not becoming so reliant that it strains relationships. A third behavior that can quietly push people away is becoming too set in our ways. Aging often brings a sense of comfort in routine. We develop habits that we feel are comfortable and familiar, and that's okay. However, this can lead to a reluctance to change, which may put a strain on our relationships. For example, we might refuse to adapt to new technologies or change old habits that others find convenient or necessary. This resistance to change can be frustrating for younger generations, especially when it comes to things like technology. In fact, a report by AARP showed that nearly 70% of older adults have difficulty keeping up with new technology, and this can create a sense of disconnection between generations. When we resist change, we risk isolating ourselves from people who are part of a world that is rapidly evolving. If we don't make an effort to understand the changes around us, we might unintentionally shut ourselves off from the people who are trying to connect with us. Furthermore, as we age, it's easy to fall into a pattern of repeating ourselves. This is often seen when we're telling stories or reminiscing about the past. While it's important to share experiences and memories, repeatedly telling the same stories can become frustrating for those listening. The listener might feel as though they are not being heard or that their presence is not valued. This can be especially difficult for younger people who may not have the same connection to the past, making it hard for them to engage with the conversation. Research from the National Institute on Aging suggests that memory changes, such as forgetting things we've said recently, are a normal part of aging. However, it's important to be mindful of how often we're repeating ourselves and to try to be aware of the reactions from others. If we notice signs of disinterest, it may be a cue to change the subject or share a new perspective. Another behavior to watch out for is becoming overly critical, whether of ourselves or others. As we age, it's not uncommon to become more self-conscious about how we're perceived, our appearance, or even our abilities. However, when these concerns start manifesting as criticism, it can create tension in relationships. Constantly pointing out flaws, whether in our own appearance or the actions of those around us, can be damaging. Family members may begin to feel criticized or judged, which can lead to feelings of inadequacy. Criticism, especially if it's not constructive, can chip away at the emotional foundation of relationships. According to a study published in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships, frequent criticism can create a negative feedback loop, where the more we criticize, the more we push others away. It's important to embrace self-compassion and be mindful of how we communicate our thoughts, especially when it comes to people we care about. Another subtle behavior that might develop is withdrawal. As we age, we might find ourselves becoming more isolated either because of physical limitations or a natural desire for quiet and solitude. While some level of withdrawal is normal, especially as we become more introspective, it can also lead to feelings of loneliness. The problem with withdrawal is that it's often not noticed until it's too late. At first, we might feel that staying home and avoiding social situations is a choice, but over time, this behavior can make others feel that we're not interested in their company or that we're indifferent to their presence. Social isolation can have serious consequences on mental health, and research has shown that it can lead to depression, cognitive decline, and even premature death. According to the National Institute on Aging, older adults who are socially isolated are more likely to experience these negative health outcomes. To avoid this, it's important to make an effort to stay connected, even if it means pushing ourselves to step outside of our comfort zones occasionally. Lastly, one of the most damaging behaviors to a relationship is the refusal to apologize. As we age, we may become more stubborn or prideful, especially if we've spent a lifetime building our beliefs and values. But refusing to apologize when we're wrong can create significant tension and resentment in relationships. Apologies are crucial for maintaining healthy interactions because they show vulnerability, accountability, and a willingness to repair a connection. A study by the American Psychological Association found that people who fail to apologize when they've hurt someone emotionally tend to create long-term damage in relationships. Over time, this refusal to acknowledge mistakes can build up into a wall of resentment, ultimately causing loved ones to pull away. These behaviors are often subtle and may not be immediately noticeable. As we age, we become accustomed to our own way of thinking and living, which makes it easy to miss the signs that we're pushing people away. However, by being aware of these tendencies, we can make a conscious effort to address them. It's all about recognizing that we are still a part of a broader social fabric, and maintaining strong relationships is essential for our well-being. Relationships require effort, empathy, and understanding from all parties involved. The key is to stay aware of how our actions might impact others and to be open to change. By doing so, we can continue to enjoy fulfilling, meaningful relationships well into our later years, staying connected to the people who matter most. How can I avoid developing habits that isolate me from family and friends as I get older? As we age, it's easy to fall into habits that unintentionally isolate us from the people we care about most. These behaviors can develop gradually and often without us realizing it, but over time, they can have a significant impact on our relationships. Family and friends are crucial for our emotional well-being, and maintaining these connections becomes even more important as we get older. So, how can we avoid developing habits that distance us from the people we love? It starts with self-awareness and a willingness to change. The good news is, by being mindful of certain patterns and taking proactive steps, we can continue to nurture our relationships and keep them strong, regardless of our age. The first step in avoiding behaviors that isolate us is understanding the common habits that tend to push people away. One of the most prevalent is becoming overly self-focused. As we age, it's easy to start focusing more on ourselves, especially when dealing with physical changes, health concerns, or a shifting routine. The problem arises when we become too absorbed in our own challenges and forget to engage with others. We might begin to talk about our health issues too much or dwell on our own difficulties, leaving little room for others to share their experiences. Over time, this can create an imbalance in the relationship, where one person feels constantly heard but never really listened to. Studies have shown that when someone feels like the other person is too self-absorbed, it can lead to frustration and emotional withdrawal. One study published in the journal Psychology and Aging found that older adults who were too focused on their own problems often reported higher levels of loneliness as they struggled to connect with others. Another behavior that isolates us is withdrawing from social situations. It's completely natural to crave solitude as we get older, especially when we're facing changes in our lives. However, withdrawing too much can lead to isolation. While it's important to take time for ourselves, spending too much time alone can result in missing out on opportunities to bond with loved ones. It's easy to tell ourselves that we're fine on our own, but over time, this habit can cause us to become disconnected from the people around us. Research has shown that social isolation in older adults can have serious consequences for both mental and physical health. A study published by the National Institute on Aging found that social isolation can lead to increased risks of depression, cognitive decline, and even early mortality. Staying connected with family and friends is not only beneficial for our emotional health, but also plays a role in keeping us physically healthy. In fact, a lack of social connection has been shown to be as harmful to health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Being overly critical or negative is another habit that can alienate us from others. As we age, we might become more critical, whether it's of ourselves, our surroundings, or the people around us. This can happen for a variety of reasons, such as frustration with changes in our bodies or our environment, or even because we feel like we've earned the right to voice our opinions more freely. However, constant criticism can erode relationships, especially when it's not constructive. A pattern of negative comments, even if they're not intended to hurt, can create a tense atmosphere and make people feel like they're constantly being judged. This type of negativity is not only emotionally draining but can also lead to a breakdown in communication, as people might start avoiding interactions to protect themselves from criticism. In fact, research shows that relationships characterized by frequent criticism are more likely to end in dissatisfaction or even separation. A study published in the Journal of Marriage and Family found that couples who criticized each other frequently were more likely to experience emotional distance over time. As we get older, we also tend to become more set in our ways, which can make it harder to relate to others. The routine and structure we build over a lifetime provide comfort, but sometimes it can make us resistant to change. We might refuse to try new things or avoid learning new skills, particularly when it comes to technology. Younger generations are often using newer forms of communication, like texting or social media, but many older adults struggle to adapt to these changes. This resistance to change can create a divide between generations, making it harder for us to connect with others who have embraced these new methods. A survey conducted by AARP found that over 60% of older adults have difficulty navigating new technology, which can lead to feelings of isolation and exclusion. This resistance can also affect other areas of our lives. We might hold on to old habits or traditions that others no longer find relevant, leading to frustration and a lack of common ground. Being open to change and trying new things, whether it's learning how to use a new app or embracing a new way of thinking, is essential for maintaining strong connections. Another behavior that often leads to isolation is neglecting our physical health. As we age, it's natural to experience some physical limitations. However, neglecting our health, whether it's by not eating well, not exercising, or not seeking medical attention when needed, can have serious consequences. Physical health is closely tied to our ability to engage with others and maintain an active social life. If we ignore our health, we may find ourselves less able to participate in activities with friends or family, which can lead to feelings of exclusion. It's important to prioritize our physical health, even as we get older, so that we can continue to enjoy the activities that keep us connected to others. In fact, a study published in The Lancet showed that regular physical activity can reduce the risk of depression and anxiety, which are common in isolated individuals. It also found that staying active can help improve cognitive function, making it easier to maintain relationships and stay engaged in social interactions. A tendency to repeat ourselves is another behavior that can alienate us from others. As we age, it's not uncommon to tell the same stories or talk about the same topics multiple times. While reminiscing is a normal part of aging, constantly repeating ourselves can create frustration for those around us. People may start to feel like they are not being heard or that their presence is not valued. In some cases, repeating ourselves can be a sign of memory loss or cognitive decline, which can be concerning for our loved ones. However, even if there's no underlying condition, the habit of repeating stories or topics can make interactions feel stagnant and less engaging. To avoid this, it's important to pay attention to how others are responding during conversations. If they seem uninterested or disengaged, it might be a sign that they've already heard that story or are looking for a new topic to discuss. Being mindful of how often we repeat ourselves can help keep conversations fresh and enjoyable for everyone involved. The last habit that can isolate us from others is avoiding apologies. As we get older, we may feel like we've earned the right to be set in our ways, and this can sometimes manifest as a refusal to apologize. However, not apologizing when we've wronged someone can create tension and distance in relationships. Apologies are an important part of maintaining healthy relationships, as they demonstrate humility, responsibility, and a willingness to mend any hurt feelings. When we refuse to apologize, it can create feelings of resentment and make the other person feel like their feelings are not valued. Studies have shown that the inability to apologize can lead to a breakdown in communication and can make it harder to repair relationships. A study published in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships found that individuals who were reluctant to apologize in their relationships were more likely to experience conflict and emotional distance. Avoiding these habits and behaviors requires conscious effort and a willingness to change. It's important to be self-aware and recognize when we might be engaging in habits that could isolate us from others. But the good news is that it's never too late to make a change. By focusing on maintaining positive, meaningful relationships with family and friends, we can ensure that we remain connected and engaged even as we get older. The key is to be mindful of our actions, stay open to change, and prioritize our relationships. In doing so, we can continue to enjoy the company of those we love and ensure that we don't fall into habits that distance us from them. Staying connected to others is one of the most important aspects of aging gracefully, and with a little effort, we can make sure that we remain an active, positive part of our social circles for years to come. Are there certain things I do without realizing that could make others feel uncomfortable or distant? We all want to maintain strong, positive relationships with those around us, whether it's family, friends, colleagues, or even casual acquaintances. However, there are certain behaviors or actions that we might engage in without realizing it that can make others feel uncomfortable, distant, or even push them away. The problem is that these behaviors are often subtle and go unnoticed by us. So, how can we identify the things we do that might have this effect on others? And, more importantly, how can we prevent them from damaging the relationships we care about? The truth is, it starts with understanding our own actions and their impact on those around us. Often, these behaviors are not malicious or intentional. They stem from habits or social dynamics we've developed over time. However, when left unchecked, they can create distance between us and others. By becoming more self-aware and making small adjustments, we can avoid making others feel uncomfortable without realizing it. One of the most common behaviors that can create discomfort in others is dominating conversations. We've all met someone who tends to talk over others or steer every conversation back to themselves. It can happen unconsciously, especially if we feel passionate about a topic or are going through a difficult time and want to be heard. The issue is, when we do this too often, it can leave others feeling unheard and unimportant. One study conducted by the University of California showed that when one person dominates a conversation, it can lead to feelings of frustration and emotional withdrawal in the other person. According to the study, people tend to feel more emotionally connected to others when they have the space to share their thoughts and feelings. If we're constantly cutting others off or steering the conversation toward ourselves, it can leave people feeling isolated and unheard. The key to avoiding this behavior is to be mindful of how much space we're taking in conversations. Are we listening as much as we're speaking? Are we giving others the opportunity to express themselves? Being aware of these things can help us strike a balance and ensure that our conversations remain respectful and engaging for everyone involved. Another behavior that often makes others uncomfortable without us realizing it is being overly critical. Criticism, when not delivered carefully, can be hurtful even if it's meant to be constructive. As we get older, we may become more opinionated or focused on pointing out flaws, whether it's about how someone is doing something or how a situation could be improved. However, constant criticism can erode trust and create tension in relationships. Research conducted by the University of California, Berkeley found that excessive criticism in relationships leads to increased emotional distance and a breakdown in communication. When people feel like they are being constantly judged, they begin to withdraw, which only creates more distance. The key to avoiding this behavior is to be mindful of how we express our opinions. Instead of pointing out what someone is doing wrong, try focusing on positive aspects and offering suggestions in a constructive way. Additionally, focusing on empathy and understanding before offering any critique can help to reduce the negative impact of criticism. When we make an effort to be supportive rather than judgmental, we foster a more positive and open environment where everyone feels heard and appreciated. A third behavior that can push people away is not respecting personal boundaries. Boundaries are essential in every relationship, and failing to recognize and respect them can create discomfort and tension. This might include showing up unannounced, asking too many personal questions, or not giving someone enough space when they need it. Research from the American Psychological Association has shown that people who feel their boundaries are being crossed tend to experience higher levels of stress and anxiety. Over time, this can lead to emotional burnout and a breakdown in the relationship. The best way to avoid this behavior is to be aware of the other person's signals. Are they backing away when you get too close, or do they seem uncomfortable when a certain topic is brought up? It's important to ask for permission before delving into personal matters and to respect their need for space or privacy. Recognizing and respecting boundaries is not just about being polite, it's about ensuring that everyone involved feels safe, comfortable, and respected. Another behavior that can make people feel uncomfortable without realizing it is being too self-absorbed. This can happen when we become overly focused on our own issues, concerns, or desires without considering how others might feel. It might manifest as talking endlessly about our own problems without asking how the other person is doing, or it could show up as being too wrapped up in our own goals or plans without considering the impact on others. A study published in Psychological Science found that people who focus too much on themselves can unintentionally alienate others, leading to lower levels of empathy and a sense of disconnection. The key to avoiding this behavior is to practice empathy and show genuine interest in the lives of others. Take the time to ask how they're doing and listen actively when they share. By making others feel seen and heard, we create a more balanced and connected relationship. Self-awareness is key to ensuring that we're not unintentionally overshadowing those around us with our own issues. A fifth behavior that can make others uncomfortable is failing to express gratitude or appreciation. It's easy to take the people in our lives for granted, especially if we see them regularly or have been close for a long time. However, neglecting to show appreciation can lead to feelings of resentment or emotional detachment. Research conducted by the Greater Good Science Center at the University of California, Berkeley, has shown that gratitude is a crucial factor in maintaining strong relationships. When we fail to acknowledge the efforts of others or show appreciation for their kindness, it can create a sense of imbalance and emotional distance. The key to avoiding this behavior is to regularly express gratitude, whether it's a simple thank you or a more meaningful acknowledgement of the other person's support or love. Small gestures of appreciation go a long way in making others feel valued and strengthening our relationships. Another habit that can make people feel distant is interrupting or talking over others. While it's easy to do this in a conversation, especially when we're excited to share our thoughts, it can be incredibly frustrating for the other person. A study published in the Journal of Social Psychology found that interrupting others during a conversation can lead to feelings of disrespect and emotional disengagement. People want to feel that their opinions are valued and heard, and constantly interrupting them can make them feel like their input doesn't matter. The key to avoiding this behavior is to practice active listening. Allow the other person to finish their thoughts before jumping in, and make sure to acknowledge their perspective before offering your own. This shows that you value their input and fosters a more respectful and engaging conversation. A seventh behavior that can create discomfort is being dismissive of others' emotions. Sometimes, we might unintentionally downplay someone's feelings, especially if we don't understand them or think they're overreacting. However, dismissing someone's emotions can make them feel invalidated and unimportant. Research conducted by the University of Michigan found that emotional invalidation can have long-term negative effects on relationships, including increased feelings of isolation and emotional distress. To avoid this, it's important to validate the emotions of others, even if we don't fully understand them. Instead of telling someone to calm down or get over it, try acknowledging their feelings and offering support. This helps build trust and ensures that the other person feels heard and understood. A final behavior that can push people away is neglecting to follow through on promises. Whether it's a small favor or a major commitment, failing to follow through on what we say can create feelings of distrust and disappointment. According to a study by the Journal of Consumer Research, broken promises are one of the leading causes of relationship dissatisfaction. When people feel that they can't rely on us to keep our word, it can create emotional distance and strain the relationship. The key to avoiding this behavior is to be realistic about what we can commit to. If we're not sure we can follow through, it's better to be honest up front rather than disappoint someone later. By keeping our promises and being dependable, we build trust and maintain strong, positive relationships. In short, there are several things we might do without realizing that could make others feel uncomfortable or distant. These behaviors, while often unintentional, can have a significant impact on our relationships. The good news is that with self-awareness and a willingness to make small adjustments, we can avoid these behaviors and foster stronger, more meaningful connections with the people around us. By being mindful of how we communicate, respecting boundaries, expressing gratitude, and showing empathy, we can ensure that our relationships remain healthy and fulfilling, both now and in the future. How can I maintain meaningful relationships and avoid becoming distant as I age? As we age, it's natural to experience shifts in our relationships. Many of us find that our circle of friends gets smaller, or that we no longer connect with family members as deeply as we once did. But maintaining meaningful relationships as we grow older is crucial for our emotional health, well-being, and overall happiness. It's easy to fall into the trap of becoming distant from others without even realizing it. The good news is that with a bit of awareness and effort, we can ensure that our relationships stay strong, fulfilling, and meaningful as we age. The first step in maintaining meaningful relationships as we age is to acknowledge the problem before it becomes one. As we age, our priorities, interests, and even physical abilities change. We may find ourselves less able to socialize in the same ways we once did. This can lead to feelings of isolation or loneliness. In fact, a study conducted by the National Institute on Aging found that nearly 1/3 of older adults report feeling lonely, which can contribute to mental and physical health issues. As we face these changes, it's essential not to ignore the potential for growing apart from loved ones. The desire to stay connected with family, friends, and significant others is a fundamental human need. However, if we're not mindful, we can begin to lose touch with those we care about most. A common mistake people make as they age is withdrawing from social situations. This can happen gradually as we become more comfortable in our routines, or as we face health challenges that limit our mobility. According to research from the University of California, Berkeley, one of the key contributors to isolation in older adults is the physical and mental decline that often comes with age. This decline can make it more difficult to engage in activities we once enjoyed, like going out with friends or participating in community events. However, isolating ourselves from others can create a vicious cycle. When we withdraw, we stop making the effort to maintain relationships, which can lead to further isolation and loneliness. To avoid this, it's important to keep challenging ourselves to engage socially, even if it means stepping out of our comfort zone. Whether it's scheduling regular phone calls with family members, joining a hobby group, or volunteering, there are many ways to stay involved in the lives of others. Another reason relationships can become distant as we age is that we start to rely too heavily on the past. We might find ourselves holding onto old patterns or expectations from long-term relationships, which can create friction. People change over time, and that includes us. A study by the American Psychological Association found that people's emotional needs and ways of communicating evolve as they age. What worked in our 20s or 30s may not necessarily work in our 60s or 70s. We might want to hold onto old habits, such as avoiding difficult conversations or suppressing our feelings, but these behaviors can push others away. Instead of relying on the past, try to approach relationships with a mindset of growth and adaptability. The ability to adjust to new circumstances and be open to change is key to maintaining healthy relationships as we age. This means being open to new ways of communicating, showing affection, and finding common ground with those around us. Equally important is the need to maintain a balance between independence and connection. As we age, we often value our independence more than ever. However, it's essential not to let this desire for independence lead to isolation. Research by the University of Southern California suggests that older adults who maintain a sense of autonomy in their relationships are more likely to experience long-term satisfaction and happiness. This means being able to take care of yourself and make your own decisions, but also recognizing that it's okay to rely on others when necessary. Relationships thrive when there's a balance of give and take. Being overly independent or overly dependent can create tension, so it's important to find that middle ground. It's about asking for help when needed, but also offering support to others. This mutual exchange strengthens bonds and ensures that both parties feel valued. Additionally, it's essential to keep up with regular communication. As we age, our lives can become busier with various commitments such as health issues, caregiving responsibilities, or personal projects. However, neglecting communication can create emotional distance. Studies show that people who maintain regular contact with friends and family are happier and less likely to experience feelings of loneliness. Regular communication doesn't always mean in-person visits, especially as we get older, but it can be as simple as a weekly phone call, text message, or video chat. Research by the National Institute on Aging found that staying connected with others through regular communication helps older adults feel emotionally supported, reducing feelings of isolation. By taking a few minutes each day or week to reach out to others, we can keep our relationships strong and avoid the emotional distance that can come from neglecting contact. Another challenge we face as we age is the loss of loved ones. Whether it's the death of a spouse, a close friend, or a family member, these losses can create a huge emotional void. Grief is a natural part of life, but it can also make it harder to maintain other relationships. According to the American Cancer Society, the grief process can take time, and people often feel the impact of loss long after the initial mourning period. When we're grieving, it's easy to withdraw and close ourselves off from others, which can lead to further isolation. One way to combat this is to allow ourselves to grieve, but also make an active effort to stay connected with others. Finding support through friends, family, or even support groups can help ease the loneliness that comes with loss. It's important to remember that even though we may be hurting, other people are still there to support us, and staying connected to them can help us heal and keep our relationships intact. One often overlooked aspect of maintaining relationships as we age is learning to deal with conflict in healthy ways. As we get older, we may feel that we've earned the right to speak our minds, but this can sometimes come across as criticism or judgment, especially if we've not learned how to communicate our feelings constructively. According to a study published in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships, older adults who are able to manage conflict in a respectful and open manner tend to have longer-lasting and more fulfilling relationships. On the other hand, unresolved conflicts or poor communication can create resentment and emotional distance. Learning to address issues calmly, listen to others, and find common ground is essential to preventing relationships from becoming strained. Sometimes, it means putting our pride aside, admitting when we're wrong, and working through challenges together. By approaching conflict with a mindset of problem-solving rather than blame, we can strengthen relationships and prevent them from becoming distant or fractured. Another significant challenge to maintaining meaningful relationships is neglecting self-care. As we age, we may be more prone to health problems, which can impact our ability to interact with others. It's tempting to retreat into our own world when we're not feeling well, but doing so can create a sense of distance between us and our loved ones. According to the National Institute on Aging, taking care of our physical and mental health is crucial for maintaining relationships. When we prioritize self-care, we're better able to engage with others and be present in our relationships. This can involve managing chronic conditions, getting regular exercise, eating well, and seeking help when we need it. By taking care of ourselves, we ensure that we're able to fully engage with those around us and prevent physical or emotional distance from growing. Maintaining meaningful relationships as we age requires intentional effort, self-awareness, and adaptability. By staying connected through regular communication, respecting boundaries, and making the effort to engage with others, we can avoid becoming distant or isolated. It's important to recognize the impact that aging can have on our relationships and take proactive steps to nurture them. The ability to adapt, communicate openly, and care for ourselves and others is the key to keeping relationships strong and fulfilling as we grow older. Through these efforts, we can ensure that we continue to enjoy the deep, meaningful connections that are so essential to a happy and healthy life.